bakıyorsun?
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Thanks for joining us for today's live stream as we unveil Path of Exile Crucible, which launches on April 7th on PC and Mac and on April 12th on console.
Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below in order to claim your Sphinx wings. Speaking of live streams, this is our last dedicated Path of Exile 1 announcement stream for around 6 months. That's
Yanlar
because
nedir
our
o bu oyun?
3.22
Neden hype
expansion
oldu?
announcement
Bu
will
3 ayda bir
occur during
sezonları
the
var
Exile
abi.
Con live stream
Her
in
3
late
ayda bir
July.
böyle sezon
Set
başında
yourself a reminder to tune
hype
in
oluyor.
because we'll also be unveiling massive amounts of information about Path of Exile 2, including revealing the date that its beta will start.
Neler gelecek vesaire
Back
onları
to today's
anlatıyorlar.
live stream. Here's what you can expect. We'll start with a trailer for Crucible, followed by a deep dive on the League itself. Then we'll cover this expansion's endgame improvements, including the introduction of Atlas gateways and revamps to both Breach and Abyss leagues. We'll discuss changes to Path of Exile's balance metagame, including changes to the
Breach'le
passive
Abyss
skill
revamp.
tree, its
Severim.
masteries, an overhaul of the Saboteur and
Abyss'i.
Pathfinder Ascendancy classes, 9 powerful new Vaal skills, and some of the new unique items you can build around. After that, we'll cover improvements to the Ruthless game mode and the League launch boss kill event,
Ziggy
before
Lab var
diving into
abi.
the new supporter pack series. The live stream will then conclude with a Q&A session between Ziggy D and me, where we'll answer questions from Twitch chat. After the live stream, we'll drop the full patch notes.
Let's get started with the trailer for Path of Exile Crucible.
Hail, one of many. Eons ago, my kind walked the molten surface of this world. Now, we seek a champion. You must endure the heat of the Crucible. To forge weapons unlike any Rayclast has ever seen. Take up the power of the Titans and bring obliteration.
O ağaçta bir sapıtış vardı. Saboteur mü? Saboteur yapma be abi ya. Bitirildi abi sabah. Yapma abi, değiştirmeseydin ya. Abi niye böyle be? Bu kötü olmadı abi. Tadım kaçtı, suyumuzu içemem, soğuk suyumuzu. Abi be. Abi revert dedi, iyileştirme olmaz ki daha.
In Path of Exile Crucible, you'll learn about an ancient race of titans who once shaped the primordial surface of Rayclast. In this league, you will earn the ability to forge their power onto your weapons. And what form does that power take? In an iconically Path of Exile way, it's the ability to imbue your weapons with their own passive skill trees. These Crucible trees can have quite an impact on your character build. For example, in addition to the regular mods on this bow, its Crucible tree grants additional physical damage, physical to chaos conversion, the Master Fletcher notable passive, improved grace effect, and level 10 lesser multiple projectiles. While this is certainly a decent tree to get, it's not even the maximum depth and could be even more optimized for your build. In order to forge these powerful trees onto your weapons, you'll need to complete Crucible encounters. There's one in each area. Each encounter takes place at a Crucible forge. As you approach the forge, you'll have the choice of which of your equipped weapons.
Yalnız çok kuvvetli olmaz mı ya oradaki şeyler?
Ones on your alternate weapon swap if you want to improve one you're not currently using. After selecting a weapon, you channel it at the Crucible forge to spawn monsters. The longer you channel for, the more dangerous and rewarding the encounter becomes. As you spawn additional monsters, they combine together to create larger and more fearsome foes that grant even more experience for your Crucible passive.
Arka silahta istediğin şey yaparsın
Being
yarısı
able
abi.
to
Evet.
ramp up the difficulty of the encounters is a double-edged sword. While it gives you the opportunity to make rapid progress on your Crucible weapon crafting projects, it comes with significant risk to your character. It's easy to accidentally overwhelm yourself and make an encounter that is too dangerous. Channel carefully and adapt to what your character is capable of. When you first find a weapon, it doesn't have a Crucible tree unlocked. Channeling that weapon at Crucible encounters will unlock and reveal its tree, as well as allocating the first skill. You can only allocate one skill at each tree depth, so you'll need to decide which path through the tree is best for your build. As you get deeper into a tree, more and more experience is required to unlock skills. The final depths can take quite an investment and can only be found rarely on in-game items.
Abi tanıtım şeye geçsin anlatırım. Bir daha sor bana. Biraz daha rahatlayınca anlatayım
This
kısaca.
wand has 2 depth 5 skills to choose from. One of them allows all damage from your Freezing Pulse and Eye of Winter skills to poison, and the other allows various
Poison, Eye of
rounds to be
Winter
attached
severim.
to your summoned reapers.
Buna sapıtış gelir
There are
yalnız
many
bu
such
ağaçlarla.
modifiers to skills that will enable very interesting build combinations. In addition to all types of weapons, shields can also be empowered with their own Crucible trees. Here's a relatively simple low-level example. It gets a bit crazier as you approach the endgame. Speaking of the endgame, in endgame Crucible encounters, you'll occasionally find igneous geodes, currency items that can be cracked open to reveal a primeval remnant. This is a map-like item that grants access to the Forge of the Titans, the culmination of your Crucible journey. These primeval remnants always generate as rare items. Half of their mods are upsides and half are downsides. The upsides generally increase the rewards of the area or add special crafting options. For example, causing monsters to drop divination cards or magmatic ore, a form of tradable itemized Crucible tree experience. The downsides are quite punitive compared to most in-game maps. Ideally, you want to find a primeval remnant that is really rewarding upsides alongside downsides you can handle. If you don't think you'll survive a visit to the Forge of the Titans, trade the remnant away to someone else and gamble on cracking open another geode. If you survive and manage to reach the end of the area, you'll find the aforementioned Forge, which allows you to merge Crucible trees on 2 items together. The way this process works is that you provide 2 items of the same class. For example, a pair of bows, a pair of shields, or a pair of one-hand axes. One of these items will be melted down and applied to the other, which will keep its regular properties. Their Crucible trees will be merged together in an
İmam gelmiş yine.
taking elements of each one. This is a little reminiscent of how recombinators applied to item mods, taking parts of each Crucible tree and merging them together, as well as randomly upgrading, downgrading, or mutating skills on the resultant tree. While this process can create some really powerful trees if you get skills you wanted from both items, it can also completely wreck your precious trees. So take care choosing which you risk combining. Also, like recombinators, there are ways to manipulate the system to improve your odds of getting certain outcomes. For example, any skills that have been allocated are more likely to show up in the resultant Crucible tree.
Çöp işlerde varsa çok
By default,
zor
you
olur
can only
bunlar.
add Crucible trees to non-unique items. But it's possible to get a mod on the Forge of the Titans map that allows you to imbue a unique item with a Crucible tree, which can then be leveled up via regular Crucible encounters.
Normalde sadece
To
normal
combine
itemler
Crucible
varmış.
trees on unique items together, you'll want to find a crystalline geode and crack it open to reveal the secret higher-level version of the Forge of the Titans. I probably shouldn't say too much about it, but it will let you do some interesting things with Crucible trees. There's an important thing to note about Crucible trees on unique weapons. In addition to being much harder to unlock, there's a special rule about how they can be combined. A unique weapon must be combined with another copy of the same unique weapon to merge their trees together. Because this destroys one copy, getting a good Crucible tree on a unique weapon makes it insanely valuable. It may also raise the trade value of all unique weapons by quite a lot, as players sacrifice them trying to create perfect Crucible trees.
Saçma bir itemda çok iyi şey olabilir.
Skill tree with a special skill that indicates that the item will sell to vendors for a specific item in addition to its regular sale price. These vendor skills usually occur relatively deeply in the tree, so take some effort to allocate, but usually don't block skill choices you'd make when leveling the item up for use. The presence of these skills presents you with an interesting choice about whether you want to use the item or sell it to a vendor. And whether you want to
O abandıkça daha da fazla şey oluyor, yaratıcı çıkıyor. Ne kadar abanırsan o kadar yaratıcı çıkma şeyi var burada.
Items to use or leveling up items to sell. El Abin's Visage, a unique helmet, is special in that it's the only helmet other than shields that can receive Crucible passive skill traits. Wearing it allows you to double down on certain properties that are only available through these trees.
Onun şeyi bu.
There are several other unique items exclusive to Crucible for you to discover in this league. Crucible is a dual combat crafting league with a focus on encounter difficulty scaling and deep weapon customization with a power level that we have never seen before. Without a doubt, some of Path of Exile's most powerful weapons will be forged in Crucible. We can't wait to see what you manage to create. Like all recent Path of Exile expansions, Crucible includes a lot of changes with the goal of improving Path of Exile's endgame.
Benzemiyor değil.
One area we wanted to address was mobility on the Atlas passive tree. Often, you'll find yourself in a situation where you want to specialize in leagues that are on entirely different sides of the Atlas tree. Or maybe you want to focus on the type of altar that isn't near the leagues you have picked. To solve this, Path of Exile Crucible introduces Atlas gateways. These are nodes that you can allocate on the Atlas tree that allow instant travel between two locations. There are 3 pairs of gateways, each allowing travel from the left side of the tree to the right side or vice versa. Each end of the gateway contains 1 Atlas skill point to allocate, but will potentially save you large amounts of travel points.
Düzgün işlerden yapmış. Düzgün işlerden yapmış abi. Evet.
We're targeting a couple of endgame leagues that have fallen behind other leagues on the Atlas tree. Let's start with Breach. In the live version of Path of Exile, there are 5 tiers of Breachstone. In Path of Exile Crucible, we're raising the area levels of Breachstones to a much higher baseline level. 81 for elemental ones, 82 for physical, and 83 for chaos. Now that the regular breachstones are much higher level, we have retired charged, enriched, and pure breachstones. They will be converted to regular ones. We have also changed flawless breachstones.
Oha! Hepsi yüksek level oldu breachlerin demek.
From Maven invitations, but we prefer access to the hardest breach content to actually come from playing breach. Now there are 2 ways to get flawless breachstones: through blessings, which are now rarer as a result, and through a skill on the Atlas tree. We've also improved the pacing of breach encounters. Previously, breaches felt pretty good early on, but quickly tapered off in density to the point where you wanted to abandon the breach because it just felt like not enough monsters were spawning. Our changes now keep breaches feeling dense throughout, leaning more on the side of it feeling overwhelming towards the end of the breach. We have also reduced the duration of breaches so there is constant monster pressure and you can get on with your mapping.
Breach'in kendisinden de bir sürü şey düşmeye başladı
There are a
ya.
bunch of other breach changes that you can read about in the patch notes, such as changes to the Betrayal Research Safe House, Breach Scarabs, Breach Stones from Kirik missions, the Breach Harvest crafting option, the Fragment Stash tab, Divination cards, Breach unique items, Atlas passives, and so on. We're also revamping Abyss in a similar way. Abyssal Depths now always contain an Abyssal Lich. Previously, the prevailing gameplay was to check the loading screen art of an Abyssal Depths to see if it contained a Lich, and bail out if it didn't.
Bütün abisler aşağıda
Now,
artık
the
boss'ta
depths always
olacakmış.
contain a Lich, removing the need for this step. While the rate of encountering Abyssal Liches is unchanged, Abyssal Depths are rarer than before. However, Abysses now have a chance to spawn a Stygian Spire in place of their reward chest, which will drop all of the jewels and other items you'd normally receive, as well as a Stygian Vice. In addition, you're guaranteed to always get a 4-hole Abyss alongside your Abyssal Depths. Previously, Abyssal Depths could only spawn immediately after a single Abyssal hole, which prevented you from getting full value from the Abyss. The Lightless Legion notable passive has been replaced with a new skill which grants Stygian Spires in your maps drop items with +1 to item level. This is intended to allow players to
Düzgün iş
continue to
yapmışlar
be
ama
able
Saboteur geliyor birazdan.
Stygian Vices and other base types as a reward for specializing in Abyss. The small passives leading up to this notable passive have also been replaced. We've done a balance pass on Abyssal Lich encounters to make them more appropriately difficult relative to the current standard of endgame encounters. Abyss uniques have had some balance attention also, and the details are in the patch notes. Overall, these changes should ensure you can play a wider variety of leagues in the endgame, both through being able to access them more easily and because Breach and Abyss now feel far more modern and competitive with other popular league content. A big goal of the
Breach çok
Crucible
zevkli abi.
expansion is to provide a
Biraz
lot
daha
of new
iyileşir
ways to
böyle.
build characters and to breathe new life into older builds.
To achieve this, we're doing 2 things. Firstly, we have created many more interesting options for one of Path of Exile's core build systems, the passive skill tree, by overhauling many of its masteries. Secondly, we have revamped 2 specific Ascendancy classes. As we reviewed the masteries on Path of Exile's passive skill tree, we realized that a lot of the choices were rather bland and could be a lot more exciting. We went through the masteries one by one and tried to come up with as many interesting stats as we could, ignoring what was currently there.
Once we had a short list of high-quality stats, we added in the existing ones that used to be on each mastery and picked the 6 best. All of the leftover ones have been saved for later or used in places like unique items. This process was performed on approximately half of the masteries on the tree, initially targeting the ones that needed the attention the most. Previously, some masteries only had 4 options, so we've tried to increase as many as possible to 6 options. We've also added a couple of new mastery types that we felt were missing. Let's look at an example, the life mastery choices. You can see some of the interesting new options, such as the ability to manipulate your low life and full life thresholds, which allows you to more effectively use the damage while on full life support gem and many unique items. Getting a large increase to maximum life when you have no life on your body armor not only works really well with a whole lot of unique items, but also opens up new prefix composition options for rare body armors. Here you can see the armor and energy shield mastery has more options available than before. The other thing we focused on with this one is tying the mechanics together.
%20 of armor
Instead of
olsa
something about
Exile
armor and
demiştik.
something about energy shield, we've
İyiymiş.
tried to make sure each really emphasizes having both armor and energy shield. On the Leech Mastery, we've combined the 3 increased life mana and energy shield recovery stats into one choice that affects all of them. The space we've freed up has been used to add some powerful new options, such as a portion of your Leech applying instantly. The Spell Suppression
%10 Leech
Mastery also has
instant
many
da iyi
interesting
işlerden.
options. Your chance to suppress
Saboteur
spell
gelir
damage
yüksek
becoming
demişler.
lucky is extremely useful before you've optimized your gear and haven't reached 100% yet. The third option rewards you for stacking
Hoş
more
geldin
than
abi.
100% spell suppression, which previously had few benefits. Now it's something you can plan your itemization around. While looking at masteries, we noted that there were some mechanics that didn't have enough passive tree support, so we decided to add some more options and passive skill choices for those mechanics. We also wanted to grant more access to certain types of masteries in specific parts of the passive skill tree.
Bayağı bir değişiklik var
For
herhalde
example,
işte.
in order to allow more access to the attack mastery, we've added an attack cluster by the Templar and one between the Ranger and Shadow. We wanted to create more access to other forms of recovery such as regen and recoup, so we've added some new passive skill clusters. Note that there is now a new mastery called Recovery. We've also added more capacity for investment in certain mechanics that we felt could be improved, such as link skills, stun mitigation, and marks. These mastery improvements and passive tree changes are just some of the ones introduced in Path of Exile Crucible. We look forward to your feedback on the rest when you check out the passive skill tree next week. While going through Ascendancy classes, we identified 2 that needed work, the Saboteur and the Pathfinder. Both have been significantly changed in Path of Exile Crucible. These changes reinforce their respective identities while adding some new options to build around. The Saboteur is definitely the Ascendancy class most aligned with traps and mines, but the old version of the Saboteur made it difficult to play anything but traps or mines. The new version has more builds available, including a whole new specialization, Triggers. There are 2 notable passives that help with this. Like Clockwork grants you the increased cooldown recovery rate stat, which is a pretty rare one. This is great for triggered spells as it indirectly increases their damage. This notable also makes your enemies have longer cooldowns, which can be useful in certain boss fights, for example causing the Maven's memory game to occur less often. The Perfect Crime notable passive summons 2 trigger bots, which override the location of where a triggered spell is being cast, and instead causes it
Abi ama
to trigger
şimdi neyse
twice,
sonra
one
konuşacağım.
from each of their locations. The layout for the Saboteur's trap and mine ascendancy passives has changed, so that there aren't separate 4-pointers for traps and mines. Now each one has a 2-pointer that is connected to the same shared 4-pointer. We have also completely reworked Bomb Specialist to be specifically tied to area damage, so it's a slightly more general skill. It both gives you some area damage as well as some defense against incoming area damage against you. The Pathfinder has been overdue for some attention, especially with recent features such as concoction skills that she could get the ability to specialize in. We also wanted the Flask-themed Ascendancy to have a proactive way of improving Life Flask usage. Master Distiller allows you to turn most of your skills into concoction-like effects. Master Surgeon now effectively gives all of your Life Flasks the Enduring effect, previously only found on Mana Flasks. Finally, both of the major Flask-themed branches now have some form of Flask Charge recovery. There are other improvements to the Pathfinder Ascendancy, such as Nature's Reprisal, now interacting with Wither to improve all forms of your Chaos damage, rather than just attack forms of it. Check out the full details
Güzel
in the
ölmüş
patch
bu
notes that
arada.
we'll be posting
Hakikaten
after the live
sabah.
stream.
Rest in peace.
Path of Exile Crucible introduces 9 new Vaal skills. Last expansion, there was an emphasis on melee Vaal skills. In Crucible, we're making sure that many other types of builds get new
Yeni
skills
Vaal
to build
skillleri.
around.
9 tane mi
Vaal
dedi?
skills let us introduce quite powerful effects that we couldn't normally give to a regular skill that can be used constantly. They also implicitly act as a buff to the underlying skill. Vaal Absolution upgrades one of your Sentinels of Absolution into an Apparition of Innocence. You can only have one apparition at once, but just check out these massive AoE skills it uses. Vaal Arctic Armor instantly encases you in ice, preventing non-instant actions
Vaal
including
Absolution.
movement, but granting massive damage reduction against hits. After a short duration, it also starts to regenerate your energy shield and mana at a fast rate. Both the damage reduction and regeneration last for a few seconds, or until you have been hit 3 times. It cannot be manually cancelled. Because the skill is instant, it's a great emergency button against dangerous boss slams. It also makes you count as being frozen, despite Arctic Armor normally making you freeze immune. Having another way to self-freeze may be of interest to a few mad scientist build creators in the community. Vaal Lightning Arrow fires a barrage of piercing projectiles that cause lightning to strike nearby targets whenever they hit an enemy. After a short amount of time, or when they collide with terrain, the arrows randomly change direction and continue flying. This occurs a number of times before the arrows expire. Each arrow can hit the same target once per
Vaal
redirect.
Lightning Arrow.
Because the arrows travel for a set time before redirecting, rather than a set distance, projectile speed modifiers affect the distance traveled. High projectile speed lets you clear out huge areas with them, while reducing your projectile speed increases the chance of them hitting the same target multiple times. With very low
Abi
projectile
melee'lerden
speed,
çok daha
skill
iyi
can
bunlar ya.
single
Geçen
target
sonunda melee'yi
20
buffladık
size.
diye melee Vaal skill'i diye yazar Türk yaptılar. Bu ne abi?
Vaal Reap conjures a ring of scythes that deal damage to all enemies in a circular area. The scythes leave behind a pool of blood that deals heavy physical damage over time to enemies standing in it, and for a short duration after
Vaal
entering
Reap
it.
düşünmüştüm Reap'e de
Vaal
gelsin
Reap
diye o
instantly
kadar
grants a
şeyin
large
arasında.
number of the blood charges used
Belki
by
Vaal
normal
Reap
Reap
gelse ne
on
olacak
use, as
abi?
well as
Asıl
temporarily
Reap,
higher maximum
asıl
blood
Reap
charge
Sabo'ya geldi.
capacity, substantially
Sabo
lowering the
Reap'lendi abi.
regular version of the skill. Path of Exile Crucible introduces 5 other Vaal skills we'll reveal over the next week. Vaal Animate Weapon, Vaal Domination, Vaal Ice Shot, Vaal Rejuvenation Totem, and Vaal Firestorm. This expansion
Firestorm.
also introduces more than 10 new unique items. There are 3 in particular I'd like to show you today. Blood Price is a unique helmet that has a new effect, reserving an enemy maximum life. This does exactly what it implies, causing nearby enemies to start at 92% maximum life. While this increases your clear speed against all enemies, it's especially useful against bosses. The helmet's drawback is that it reduces your maximum life, but provides decent life regeneration and block and stun recovery to counteract this. Tainted Pact is an amulet that causes chaos damage over time to heal you while you're leeching life. While the amulet provides a decent amount of life leech itself, it'll certainly require...
Leech'e çok odaklanmışlar abi. Bu Leech sapıtıcı olacak herhalde.
Widow Hail is a unique bow that is different from any other bow in Path of Exile. As a weapon, it does
Leech'le
basically no
yine
base damage, it
sağlamışlar.
doesn't grant any stats of its own,
Slayer.
but it does dramatically
Slayer, ah.
increase the power of mods provided by your quiver. Needless to say, this could produce some pretty ridiculous outcomes with good rare or unique quivers. We'll reveal some of the other new uniques over the coming week. Ruthless is a game mode that we released alongside the Sanctum expansion late last year. It's designed around extreme item scarcity and is challenging
Emek
those
bölgesi abi.
constantly behind the item power curve. So far, it has found a very passionate audience of players who love how rewarding item drops feel in such an austere environment. We have some small improvements to Ruthless and Path of Exile Crucible. Firstly, Eternal Orbs are back in Ruthless. These are an extremely powerful currency item that allows you to imprint an item and restore it if you're unhappy with the result of crafting.
Eternal Orb abi yuh. Düşer tabii düşer
Far
Ruthless'ta.
too powerful when combined with all of the different crafting options Path of Exile offered at the time. Ruthless does not have the base game's crafting feature set, so we have enabled Eternal Orbs to drop in Ruthless, albeit extremely rarely. Ruthless now has its own set of challenges to complete. Like the ones in early Path of Exile, there are a total of 8, and they're very difficult. Like we've done in the past, we're hosting a boss kill event at the start of the Crucible Challenge League. It'll be held in Ruthless Hardcore Solo Self-Found, and will require you to kill both the Uber-Searing Exarch and the Uber-Eater of Worlds, making it by far the hardest event we have ever run. The first place winner will get to work with our design team to add a new unique item to Path of Exile.
Ruthless'ta abi sadece. Eternal Orb.
VIP ticket to Exilecon in July. If they aren't able to attend or already have a ticket, then they are allowed to sell this one as they see fit. Second and third place finishers will receive a transferable VIP ticket to Exilecon that can also be sold at their discretion. If you'd like to enter the event, just create a character in Ruthless Hardcore Solo Self-Found on launch day. Best of luck to everyone. On the weekend of July 29 to 30 New Zealand time, which is July 28.
Expansion ne oldu abi hikaye ilerleyişi? Yeni büyük boss plan. O ne oldu abi dördüncülük arka arkaya? Her 4 ligde bir hikaye ilerleyecek.
We'll be streaming the entire event for free.
4 ay boyunca boşluk verildi. Ne oldu abi ona?
Our latest updates on Path of Exile 2, Path of Exile Mobile, and the next Path of Exile 1 expansion. Make a note in your calendar. Tell your
Hani abi şeyiyle expansion'da sezon şeyde gelen ilk
The Path of Exile live stream culminates in a
yeni
competitive race event between
yılda gelen
some
işte
Path of
ilk
Exile's
lig.
best players. In order to select the 4 competitors, we're going to run qualifier events during the months of April and May. The winner of each event will receive a VIP Exilcon ticket, return flights to Auckland and accommodation, and will compete in the race event live on
Açıklama
stage.
yaptı. Ben dinlemiyorum ki
All 4
açıklamalarını.
qualifiers in the final event will be run on the 3.21 version of Path of Exile, which has received a fair amount of early game balance work that will change the racing meta quite a lot.
You'll be able to read more in the patch notes. Once 3.21 releases next week, you'll be able to solve the new meta, practice hard, compete in the qualifier events, and hopefully win your place on stage in July.
Lig nasıl?
Alongside Path of Exile Crucible,
Kötü
we're
değil
introducing a
lig
few new
mekaniği çok o
types of
kadar.
microtransactions.
İyi diyorduk ama
An example I wanted to describe today is that of mannequins. These are hideout decorations that you can place to show off sets of microtransactions you have assembled. You can equip them
abi şimdi neler gelmiş.
and pose
Paraya
them in
çalışılmış yine.
various ways.
MTX
It's also
çalışıldı.
possible to swap your
Manken
entire
eksikti bir de
outfit
ya
with mannequins
hideout'ta.
on, which lets you easily store
Bir de
microsets
bunları
in your
fullleyenler
different
çıkacak
ways.
şimdi. MTX giydirenler mankenlere.
Other new microtransactions coming up include wrapping paper, which lets you gift wrap items to hand to other players, or even drop in town for random people to pick up. Today we're launching 2 new series of supporter packs, the Lithomancer and Enchanter packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value
Evet,
points,
pamuk yerler
alongside
cebe
several
vakti geldi
exclusive
abi.
microtransactions. These packs are only available for the duration of the Crucible Lig and will leave the store forever when it ends. As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power or progression in any way.
4 aylık
Lithomancer
MTX
series of
abi
supporter
gelsin.
packs contain 6 exclusive microtransactions. The Tunnel Bear isn't just adorable, he will also take the place of the Crawler in Delves, lighting your surroundings
Sonunda
and laying
değişti
down vehicles.
araba.
Apparently, this is what happens when your bear gets into a kilo of sulfite. Might explain what happened to Nico. The Ring of the Demon Slayer attempts to exorcise rare and unique demons when you hit them. The souls of defeated demons are
güzelmiş
banished
ayı.
to the depths below. The ancient stone of the Lithomancer's armor set crumbles when you take damage, revealing the crimson core inside. The stone reforms if you haven't taken damage recently.
Abi yuh
A
ya
sip
bu
from
iyi
the ancestral
çalışılmış.
granite flask causes a Karui ancestor to appear and surround you in protective wards. The ancestral portal encases you in molten armor when you travel through it.
Kalamoana, warrior.
The summoned Karui ancestor rallies you to battle and honestly seems to have an unhealthy obsession with combat.
Go forth and conquer.
Ever want to practice running away from volatiles? The gunpowder foot attachment straps explosives to your legs, dispersing lit gunpowder behind you. Be careful, you can only outrun it for so long before it catches up. The Enchanter Pack series also has 6 exclusive microtransactions. The Parrot of Exile pet parrots your exile. We'll just let it speak for itself.
It would be wrong to do that here.
Wrong. I need more mana.
Drinking from the bottled storm Jade Flask encases you in a surging tornado, churning up the ground in your wake.
İyisiler çökertici. Bu
If you stand perfectly
çökertici
still
yalnız
while
bu.
wearing the enchanted armor set, it will attract butterflies to flutter around you. Be careful not to disturb them. Sick of high-fiving giant purple appendages? The Ritualist's Breach Ring visually transforms breaches you find into occult summoning circles.
Oo mekaniklere de MTX çakmaya başlanır şimdi güzel iş.
Replaces the
İyi
normal
iyi
crafting
para
table
işi.
in the hideout with a suite of tools fit for a master artisan. The various crafting stations burst into life as you use them. If you've ever wanted to remind your character who's really in charge, the Puppeteer's back attachment has you covered. It truly is the sinister presence pulling the strings. These new packs are available right now at pathofexile.com/purchase.
Ayı güzelmiş ama.
Purchases like these
Ayı güzelmiş
directly
de
fund the
ayı
ongoing development of Path of Exile
20
1
dolardır en
and 2.
az.
Meanwhile, the Forge and Gemling packs leave the store forever at the launch of the Crucible Lig, so now's your last chance to purchase them. Thank you for your continued support.